Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio, and I'm going to start off with our foundational verse because we need it. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord. For he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Dad, again, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask you every day, and I hope it's not boring for people. I hope it starts to sink in because, again, we just celebrated 4 years now, Dad. Talk Truth is 4 years old.
Yeah.
On television.
Can you believe
and I can't believe it. I really can't. And I'm noticing a little bit of change in Canada and in Canadians. They're getting a little more, a little more, a little, whatever you want to call that. And that verse is helping, but not everyone's quite up to speed yet. We're 4 years in and we're still being banned, lockdowns, ridiculousness is going on, but people are starting to push back. But why is this verse important, Alan?
Well, because the earth and everything in it in the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord. It's that simple, which means he's our creator. And he established it. God always was. And then there was a day that came along where he decided to create the earth in 7 days, 6 days. And on the seventh day, he rested. He created male and female. He put it all together and gave us a plan to multiply and to take care of the earth, et cetera, et cetera. It's all there in Scripture. He also gave us freedom. He gave us choice. And by that, he told people that you can choose to eat from any tree in the garden except for one. And if you touch that one, you will die. And of course, he meant spiritual death, which later obviously comes the physical death. And that's exactly what happened. So God is in control, and he's the one that knows everything from the end to the beginning. So God knows what's going to happen in your life, in my life. He knows each day. He knew that we would be on this program saying that we've been on Talk Truth for 4 years. It goes on, Corey. He is the beautiful designer of everything. And that's the beautiful thing about God.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is become more aware. You mentioned about Canadian people understanding this more. And, I hope so, because there's one promise that we have from someone who can fulfill the promise, and that's God. He said, I will heal your land. In other words, whatever's wrong with your land, I will heal that. There's one condition. You, as my people, God's people, got to turn from your evil ways.
Mm-hmm.
And once you turn from your evil ways, I will heal your land.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, do we believe that or don't we? I believe that. And I believe that each of us who call ourselves Christians should ask the question, Lord, what evil have I been involved in that I need to repent and stop doing it and turn around and do things better?
Yeah. Well, someone who's doing his part is this guy right here, Mr. John Carpay. He's the president founder of Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. John, welcome back to the show.
So glad to be with you, Corey and Alan.
Well, we love having you. You're a busy man. My goodness, the Canadian government just keeps getting you work like crazy, and your lawyers are all over the place fighting cases that are just really make your head scratch, to be honest with you. Quite a few of them really make you go, did I wake up, in a clown world? But no, this is real. I'm pinching myself. It's real. I wanted to go on a few topics because I know they're very important. A lot of them have gotten a lot of publicity. But let's talk about one that really was a shocker. Sean Feucht, I think that's his name. He's a worship leader. He does Let Us Worship. He's been going around in Canada doing a Canadian tour, blocked, censored, banned, permits pulled, struggle after struggle after struggle. Now, whatever anyone's thoughts are on Sean and how he worships or what his worship's about. We believe in freedom. Whatever that is. The Muslims want to pray, you know what I mean? Great, give them a permit. Christians want to worship, great, give them a permit. But we're not seeing that. Can you tell us a little bit about that case? How are you guys getting involved?
Yeah, so Sean Feucht is an American Christian singer. He's also got some political opinions. He ran for Congress and tried to secure a Republican nomination. He is openly, unapologetically pro-life. He disagrees with the transgender ideology and criticizes how that's harming children. He is pro-Trump. And the CBC actually, it's funny, they said he's a MAGA musician, makes it sound like he's touring Canada to promote Trump, which if he was, that would be his right and his freedom to do that. But he's actually a Christian singer, but the CBC's kind of mischaracterized him. But what happened was in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, in Moncton, New Brunswick, in Ottawa, in Montreal, municipalities that had a contract to let him use a public space like a public park to have a public concert, they've canceled those contracts. And they say that what Sean Feucht is, he doesn't align with our values of equity, diversity, inclusion, this kind of stuff. And they're correct, actually. His values are quite different from their values. But what's wrong with it from a legal standpoint is if a city has a public square, like maybe a big square downtown, or a public park that belongs to the city, is city owned, you cannot. The government has to comply with the duty of state neutrality, which means that the government cannot be pro or anti-Christian, pro or anti-Muslim, pro or anti-whatever. The government has to be neutral. And so they have violated the Constitution by canceling the contracts they had in place with Sean Feucht to come in there and lead a praise and worship service. So our lawyers are actively helping to defend his free speech rights in Canada. So we've been involved with the tour in Abbotsford and Edmonton and other forthcoming places.
Thankfully, Danielle Smith gave him an invitation that he's more than welcome to be in Alberta, and that he can have the concert on the Parliament grounds.
On the grounds of the legislature. Well, that's the way it should be. And they have to give that to everybody, right? So the government needs to be neutral when renting out public spaces. So that could also be, public spaces for things that the three of us might disagree with. But as long as it's not, advocacy of violence or criminal conduct, the governments, whether it's federal, provincial, municipal, shouldn't be doing this picking and choosing and censorship and saying, well, we're only going to rent out a public space to people that we like, that we agree with. It's totally wrong.
Agreed. And I keep hearing this, safety concerns. They have safety concerns. Why is it always John's safety concerns? It's for your safety, and we have safety. They use that all the time. It's almost like the precursor that when we're going to lock people down, when we're going to steal freedoms, when we're going to ban certain things and censor certain things, it's always a safety thing. Do you find that that's what they were saying? Or were they saying like what you had mentioned, that you don't align up with our DEI or woke agenda, or is that just an assumption?
Well, I've seen the safety and security, I call it the dreaded SS. I've seen it used against pro-life groups on campus for literally decades, where the university administration would say, well, you cannot express pro-life views on campus because there might be violence. Now, like every good, effective lie that is used successfully, there's a kernel of truth in it. I mean, yes, it is a problem if a bunch of pro-life students, set up a pro-life display or something, and if there are people with an opposing viewpoint that attack them and beat them up, the violence certainly is a problem. Where it's insidious, right? So you have this kernel of truth, right? That violence is bad, and the university has a responsibility to deal with violence and prevent violence. That's all true. But they use that as a censorship tool. And how they get away with that, or how they have often gotten away with it, is they don't distinguish between who is causing the violence. It's a very simple, basic question. It's very easy to answer. You've got pro-life students that go onto campus, they set up a display, they engage passersby in conversation. If somebody wants to talk, they'll talk. Most people don't want to talk. That's fine. So these students are they're nonviolent, they're peacefully waiting there, hoping to speak with some passersby and engage them in conversations about the right to life and about abortion and whatever. And they've got all these photographs that are very upsetting to a lot of people, whatever. But then you've got other people who are so fanatical in their approach that they want to silence. They think like you shouldn't be allowed on campus at all. You have other people that threaten violence. They get into pushing, shoving, which, by the way, are criminal code offenses. They get into blocking, hold up a sheet or a towel to cover off displays so it's no longer visible, which is also criminal conduct. It's mischief under Section 430 to interfere with the legal use and operation of property. So what the university does is they don't distinguish between the pro-life students who are not violent and the people causing violence. They lump them all together and then say, we're going to not allow the pro-life display on campus because we need to prevent violence. So that's the insidious tactics. And the cities have been hinting at that even though Sean Feucht is totally 100% peaceful and people coming out to a praise and worship rally are peaceful and nonviolent, they're going to give like a heckler's veto to people who might be violent. That's what's going on.
But it seems like it's always one way. It's not right. So the pro-lifers know because of their violence. But if like pro-choice can go ahead and do their event, but they don't see like that could be a violent thing.
Well, it is a one-way street, and often it's the people who adhere to conservative or Christian or libertarian or other nonconformist viewpoints. They are, by and large, for the most part, they are people who respect free speech. They're not going to try to silence somebody else. They're not going to try to disrupt somebody else's event. They're not going to go to somebody else's event and hold up, like a sheet or a towel or, hold up something to block the view, right? Which again, it's illegal and criminal behavior to do that. So yeah, but on the other side, you've got violent groups like Antifa. Antifa, they have a track record of violence. And if they don't like your message or your viewpoint, they will declare that you are a racist, and they feel perfectly fine in, throwing wet cement at you to get into your eyes or into your hair, or, beating people up. So it's part of the cultural rot that we've been descending further and further into it over the course of the past few decades.
Well, Alan had a really good question about the church. Alan, you want to go ahead and ask that? The one in Montreal that got the fine?
Remind me, what was the question?
Well, he was basically saying, how can you fine a church for having a worship leader come and do a worship service in a church? That should be 100% clean. I understand the park thing, and you can fiddle and move things around, and but how do they get away with fining a church?
So they got a $2,500 fine because what happened was Montreal banned Sean Feucht. They tore up the contract that they had where he was going to be in a public venue, like some public park in Montreal, some public place. They tore up the contract when they read the CBC story about how he was this Trump musician or Make America Great Again musician. And they said, well, he doesn't align with our values. So that was illegal on the part of the city. What Sean Feucht and his team did was they asked around, and they got them. There was a church in Montreal that said, well, you can have your praise and worship service here in our church. So Sean Feucht did that. Antifa was there. Somebody walked into the church, threw a smoke bomb to disrupt the religious service. But nevertheless, they which is terrible. I don't know how hard the police are looking for the person that threw the smoke bombs. I don't know if he's been caught yet. I don't know how whether it's important to police or not. There is video footage showing the guy who walked in with the smoke bombs, and it shouldn't be that hard to identify him. Anyway, what's now happened is the city of Montreal has issued a $2,500 ticket to this church and said you had a concert without the city's permission. And the church's argument was it was not a concert, it was a praise and worship service. So as this goes towards trial, I guess at trial, the city will argue that this was a concert, right? Because there are churches, particularly older, more beautiful churches that are big, they will have concerts. The church will say it was a concert the city will argue that it was a concert, and the church will argue that it was a praise and worship service for which no permit is required.
What does it matter whether it was a concert or not a concert? If it was in a church, church is private, right? Not public. A church building.
You're entirely correct. And, as a starting point, churches have a right to do whatever they want inside their own buildings, in the same way that as a starting point, we all have the right to do whatever we want in our own home. And the law should only step in if you're doing something criminal in your house, like if one spouse is beating up another spouse or something, right, then the law can step in. I don't know how this works exactly with the right of cities to impose regulations on churches that are hosting concerts. It might depend in part if a church is going to make a profit out of renting out its space not for religious praise and worship, but they're going to have a concert, right? Maybe a classical music, play Beethoven or Tchaikovsky or something. And if the church is making a profit off of the concert by renting out its space, then off the top of my head, it seems to me that the city would have some rights to regulate that and say, you need a permit. But what happened here, there were no tickets sold. It was like anybody could walk in off the street, go into the church and listen to Sean Feucht leading in praise and worship and join in praise and worship. Anybody could walk in off the street. There was no tickets that were being sold. So
crazy. Well, we've got some time to move on to Nova Scotia. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know and kind of what your involvement is going to be inside this craziness?
Well, it's just evil. The Nova Scotia Premier last week said that people are not allowed to walk in the woods. This is a measure to combat forest fires. And it's like making people the problem when the problem could be, first of all, is the Premier going to issue tickets and fines to the lightning that strikes and causes natural forest fires? I mean, there are natural forest fires that cannot be stopped. It's legitimate on the part of government to try to prevent man-caused forest fires. So the way to do that is you put a total ban. If it's a particularly hot and dry summer and the risk is very high, you say the total ban on all campfires. No campfires allowed, province-wide. No smoking allowed in the forests. If you're going to smoke cigarettes or pipes or marijuana, whatever you're going to smoke, you do it on your home property, or maybe you do it in the city center, because a cigarette butt stomped out, in downtown is probably not going to cause a forest fire. So there's no forest fires, no smoking. Great. That would be reasonable. That would be legitimate. What they've done instead is total ban on all. You can't go into the woods. You can't enjoy the trails. You can't go for a walk or a hike in the woods. You cannot use the woods at all. And so there's a courageous retired Canadian Forces veteran, Jeff Evely, and he deliberately, in order to get a ticket to challenge this in court, he notified the parks rangers in Nova Scotia and said, I'm going into the woods. Come with me. You can give me the ticket, whatever. And he's got a YouTube video, Jeff Evely, but he got a $28,800 ticket because he walked into the woods. That's all. He walked around for 30 seconds, walked back out. He got a $28,800 ticket. And so the Justice Center is providing lawyers to him to challenge this in court.
Good for him. Right, Dad? Sounds like something you would do.
Well, the interesting thing, those signs don't mean anything. I mean, in Calgary, I go for a walk every morning for 6 kilometers, and there's, pathway closed and whatever. Pathway's been closed for almost 2 years now, and somebody put up the sign, but they aren't doing anything. They aren't doing any construction. They aren't doing whatever. So the pathway is fine. So it's like, what is that all about? So what happens is, because the sign goes up, it doesn't mean anything. And even if the pathway is closed, for somebody that walks, you can walk around the construction or whatever's going on in the path. If somebody's riding a bike, maybe it's a good idea to say, be careful if you're riding a bike because the pathway is being dug out or whatever. I don't know, but it just seems to me to be kind of silly. We were warned about being a nanny state in Canada, and that nanny state has now come into pure Marxism, or maybe even communism, where now we have tyrant governments telling us what to do and what not to do. It's unbelievable at this point.
Well, this is just sheer tyranny. I mean, with this Nova Scotia premier, there's no rational reason to have a total prohibition on people going out into the woods. And, makes me wonder, is this just a personal power trip? But it's kind of like lockdowns. We had Ocean Weisblood, this young hockey player in Calgary, getting physically assaulted by this foul-mouthed female Calgary police officer who was just dropping F-bombs, arresting a young man for skating on the ice outdoors, during lockdowns. We have a young man in Ontario, in Ottawa, that we provided lawyers for, that had a $700 ticket for playing basketball outdoors alone. He's by himself and, shooting some hoops. There's a basketball, at some public park or whatever. There's a basketball hoop there, $700 ticket. So this is like the lockdowns. It's a big power trip, and it's not rational. It never was a realistic goal to try to stop the spread of a virus. You cannot stop a spread. You cannot stop a virus from spreading throughout all of society, unless you had, everybody staying at home 100% of the time and like no economic activity at all, and then everybody would starve to death. And so, in the same way that you can't stop a virus from spreading, the Premier of Nova Scotia cannot stop lightning from striking a tree and having forest fires. The only thing you can control is telling people they can't have a campfire and they can't smoke.
And hey, I don't think there's anyone out there that would disagree with that statement. Hey, no campfires, no smoking around the woods. It's really dry. I don't think anyone would disagree. You can't walk in the woods. It's crazy. John, we only have like 90 seconds left. I want to talk about Corrupted by Fear. I think this,
yes,
you brilliant. And it says how the charter was betrayed and what Canadians can do about it. This is, you wrote this a couple of years or so back, I think it was. And how long ago?
I've got a copy of it here. It came out in January. It's available on Amazon.
Oh, was it January?
Paperback. Okay. Yeah, like 7 months ago. So you can get it in paperback, Kindle, or audiobook, and it's a bestseller on Amazon, and it goes through how we were corrupted by fear and how that fear infiltrated the different segments of society, including the media, the academic establishment, and the judiciary, also corrupted by fear.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring it up because I think it's important for people to read, because that hasn't stopped. They continue to use the fear, the intimidation, those kind of tactics over and over and over again. So I wanted people to read this so they kind of get that foundation. Al and I are trying to get people to understand, where they're coming from, what they use, how we're susceptible to it. We're suckers for it. And we're stuck in this loop, and this loop just keeps going. And you see it every day now that, now we're banning people from the woods. And now, Sean can't sing his worship songs. And it's just getting so ridiculous. But we want people to understand how they've done it, what they're doing. And I think your book really offers that for people to kind of understand and look back and go, oh, hopefully they have a light bulb moment, right? All right. Well, Amazon, is it Amazon.ca? Is that where they go?
Amazon.ca is the place to go for the book. Yeah. Corrupted by Fear, How the Charter Was Betrayed and What Canadians Can Do About It.
Awesome. John, thank you so much. We appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me on your show. Have a great rest of the day.
Well, it's great having John on. We didn't even touch the surface of the ridiculousness that they are working on at the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. I'm telling you, they're going to be, and they'll have a job for life. You know what I mean? With all the craziness going on. Alan, you grew up in this country, meaning you've been here longer than I have. You love this country. You've prayed for it. I've seen you cry out to the Lord to get Christian radio, in order, for the airwaves to start having the gospel, When you look at where we're at now, are you excited? Are you sad? Do you want to throw in your hat? Do you want to grit your teeth and dig in and fight back? Where are you when you see Canada the way it is right now?
Well, the Bible has a beautiful verse that says, even though you're outwardly fading away, inwardly you're being renewed day by day.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really think of that verse, that's what's so great about being a Christian. So when I look at that, I just begin to realize that God is alive and well. And the beautiful thing is that what we need to do is realize that when we're growing inwardly, spiritually, and being renewed, that's what it's really all about.
Got to get this booklet, The Living Stone, A Journey of Transformation. That's what we need. Transformation, renewing of the minds, a different way of thinking. It's yours absolutely free. Go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on resources, fill out the form. We'll send one to you in the mail. Supplies are almost totally gone. You want to help support our mission, keep this conversation and truth on the air. We are viewer supported. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on donate. Many different ways you can give digitally that way. If you'd like to do it through the mail, you can. You make your gift payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association and send it to 246 Stewart Green Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H3C8. And if you'd like prayer, you can get prayer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call our toll-free number, 915-0056. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.